Hey everyone, welcome to Author on Author Interviews. My name is Lachlan Pirie and I'm an author and screenwriter, passionate about sharing the stories of other authors, both traditionally and independently published. Joining me today is Daniel Munro, an English author who has recently published his second novel in a continuing apocalyptic survival series. His novel is titled Diseased Intentions and is the sequel to The Taste Beneath. Thank you so much for joining me today, Daniel.
Cheers for having me, bud. It's good to speak again.
So the last time we caught up was July 2021, which is time flies, man. It feels like a few months, but yeah, it's been nearly 2 years now. Give us a little bit of an idea about how your writing has progressed since then.
Since we last spoke, I think I was starting to write the sequel, but I was very sort of on and off because of what was happening in my job at the time. But how I think I've progressed is I'm a lot more focused now. And the last time we spoke about The Taste Beneath, I said it was a progress of about 3 or 4 years that I was putting on and off because I didn't have an ending. And so what I learned from The Taste Beneath was that to plot your story out properly. So when it came to Diseased Intentions, it was easier to write a lot quicker, purely because I knew how the book was going to end and how I was going to get to that stage of the book. And also on top of that, I learned so much during the editing process of The Taste Beneath that rewrites took a lot less longer as well. So Diseased Intentions was a much faster write compared to The Taste Beneath.
So, as your writing career's progressed over the last 2 years, has your idea of literary success changed?
No, no. You asked me this in our last interview, and I said as long as as long as someone enjoys the book, not just for my own personal success, but if it just takes them for 10 hours away from this thing we call life at the moment, which is stressful enough for everyone, no matter where you are on the planet, I consider that a success. And whether you relate to the characters or you believe the plot or it just helps you just get away, I do consider that a success.
Awesome, man. So, as your writing itself has developed, have you found your second book was easier to write than your first one?
That is a good question. That is a good question because it's a kind of unintentional sort of trick question, not by you, just how my brain just how my brain has interpreted it. Because writing the book itself was easier because I had the experience, but it was harder in the fact that I now have a fan base. It's not the biggest fan base in the world, but there's expectations.
Yeah.
So you're not really second guessing yourself, but you're like, some people now I know some people have read the first book and they know how those characters are. Would they believe that's how they act in the second book? So it's almost like a pressure of expectation. um yeah, it was the second book was harder to write for that perspective, from that perspective of there's now an audience.
Yeah, yeah. So, has the time that you've dedicated to writing increased since you've done your first book? Have you spent more time writing or book marketing for this second book?
I'd say it's about the same amount of time, but I'm a lot more efficient with it
Yeah.
because now I've just learned. I now know it's yeah, I'm a lot more efficient with it. I don't have as much. I no, actually, I do have as much downtime to just sit around and game. I just utilize it better now.
Yeah, awesome. So you've done really well in terms of growing over the last 2 years. What's been some book marketing strategies that have really helped you as an author over the last few years?
Probably doing the snippets. Um, I've learned what sort of snippet to write. I take cues from like my favorite TV shows. You know, when your favorite new TV show is about to come out, series 5 or whatever, and they give you that advert of what's coming up in the series. I've sort of taken that on board and then done that with my snippets of sort of just drip feeding information. So it's enough to get people drawn in to know what happens in book 2 without giving anything away. Because with the second book, I've quite possibly the biggest plot point, a secret from everyone, which happens in the second half of the book, and I've focused on what happened in the first half of the book. So when that happens, it's not expected, and it's a complete twist. Quite fortunate with the snippets I do. Obviously, I live in a shut-down hotel, as you know. It's literally like The Walking Dead around here. The only nice rooms at the moment are the one that you can see me in, and some of the others, but the whole hotel is overgrown. So I have that aesthetic to take the pocket photos and pretty much go with that.
Awesome, man. So what would be your tip for anyone looking to self-publish from starting off with no followers and, you know, they don't know where they're going and stuff?
I have to think about this one. A social media account of some description helps, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. A social media account is necessary to help give you a following of authors to learn from and fans to your book. The biggest tip to give to any author starting out there would be hire editors. Much as good as you think you can be. I've known I'm not the best writer in the world. I left school with a D in English. I know I'm terrible, but just that extra set of eyes to just help you, and then you can also learn from them. Editors the way forward, and also a next tip I would be is that success won't happen overnight. Yeah. It's don't expect to go in to be earning money straight away. Do it for yourself and do it for your story and do it for the story you want to tell, and the rest will come with time.
Awesome. So final author related question. Have you changed at all as a person since writing your first book? Is there anything new you've discovered about yourself?
This is a long conversation, Lachlan. This is a long conversation. We did have a brief conversation before we started recording, but yeah, a lot has changed in my life. We spoke July 2021, as I'm sure a lot's changed for you.
Yeah.
Everything that you've learned in between them, but I think everything that has happened in the past 18 months has just made me that more narrow and focused on my own work, which I think has helped the story itself. In terms of stuff going on outside of writing, it's just helped. Yeah, it's not been the easiest time, but it's not been the easiest of times for anyone's recently. Yeah, I'd just say I'm a lot more narrow and focused compared to where we were 18 months ago, because when we spoke, I was just about to release my debut novel. I had no idea of how the sales would go, what it's like to try and sell your book, and then people who do buy your book, they're not inclined to read it, and the people who do read it are not inclined to leave you a review. It's up to me to make people want to do that. So that's probably something that I've learned along that way.
Awesome, man. So getting on to your second book now, Diseased Intentions. Yep. Tell me a little bit about the story. What's the blurb?
The blurb itself, this is where I struggle, because I don't know the difference between a blurb and a synopsis. This is just the inside life of an author. I've never known the difference. I can tell you that the book carries on 2 months after the events of The Taste Beneath, and where that sort of enemy they were facing then was subdued, there's another one that was there the whole time, and it's really hidden in plain sight. It looks like everything has moved on. They're healing their wounds. Life can move forward, especially in sort of a broken down world like this, and everything can start getting back to normal. But I put a lot of emphasis on my main character, Ryan, to trust his gut instinct whilst also trying to heal. And it's very much a battle of what's going on within him, and then everything else that slowly reveals itself.
Yeah, awesome. So are we following the same characters from The Taste Beneath?
We are, well, the ones that survived, and there's some newer ones coming in as well, because the first book, The Taste Beneath, is very much centralized in the village of Maidville, or the town of Maidville, but this time I've opened up the world a bit more. So we visit France, we visit Scotland briefly, and we get to see how other communities survive, and this centralized European government that is trying to reform the continent. So it's a bit of here and there, but a lot of the story does follow Ryan and the people of The Taste Beneath.
Awesome. So because I'm a real film guy, I always relate things to TV shows or movies. If you could relate the Taste Beneath series, I suppose, to a film or TV show, what would you relate it to?
At the moment, a lot of people have said it's like The Walking Dead without the zombies, which I can sort of see. There's a lot of visual influences that I did take from the early series of The Walking Dead. But I'm going to give you a little insight here. I don't like to call my books post-apocalyptic, purely because whenever you say that phrase to someone, they automatically think zombies.
Yeah.
So if I had to, I would say it's a little visually, it's like The Walking Dead without the zombies. But I've also taken a few cues from a TV show called Hunters, which is not related in the same subject whatsoever. It's just the way that they look at characters and something bigger underneath the surface. I've just happened to do it in a post-apocalyptic world.
Cool. So what's the length of Disease Intentions? Is it longer than the first novel?
No, it's 4,000 words shorter.
Oh,
4,000 words shorter, but I think it's a lot cleaner. It's a lot more sort of smoother.
awesome.
I did, after my first draft of it, I did delete about 10,000 words because there was a lot of stuff I put in there that just didn't really aid the story, or it didn't really focus on the story. I was focusing on the next book, and I was like, I don't need to put that in yet. So I just shorten it down and make it smoother.
Cool. So is there any new themes, feelings that you're trying to evoke from the second book, or is it the same sort of feel?
It's hard for it to be the same feel, I would say, because The Taste Beneath starts with the people at the vineyard thinking that they're the last ones left, and it turns out they're not.
Yeah.
So I'd say the themes have changed into wanting to move forward and wanting to get life back together and maybe re-establish some kind of civilization or democracy. But there's that fear of how many other people are out there and how many of them are on your side.
Yeah.
I'd say there's also an underlying theme of maybe grief and mental health, which I don't play into too much. There's just something that I think is there, especially with everything that happened in the first book. How does one recover and move on whilst shit is hitting the fan?
Yeah.
Sorry if you can't put that in your interview. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear or not.
No, you're right, man. Anything's allowed. So, did like the COVID-19 era influence your inspiration for this series at all, or was it purely out of your love for this type of material?
No, the only thing that the COVID era gave me was the time to write it. I obviously I was watching The Walking Dead, so I like that kind of aesthetic that there's no laws.
Yeah.
That makes me sound like a criminal, but I just love that kind of very different world feeling. But there was also a book series which I'm just gonna quickly grab now. It's called 1 Second After.
Yeah.
And of all the sort of world-ending post-apocalyptic books, that one felt the most real because it's something that could happen. And I was like, oh shit. So yeah, I don't think the COVID era affected my vision of the book itself. It just gave me the time to write it.
Awesome. I like it. So how many novels are you planning for this series?
So for this part of the series, there will be 5, and then I will do 2 prequels. Whether I continue this series or not after the prequels depends on whether I kill my main character off at the end of book 5. That's going to be a coin flip. me deciding whether I do or not. Because if I do kill him off, I won't continue the series, because I've seen TV shows, movies like you have, and when they lose the main character and try to continue, it's very few TVs, books, movies can pull that off.
Yeah.
So the series will die with Ryan if Ryan dies.
Awesome. I like how you've got like a definite ending for it. So
Yeah.
tell me a bit about the feedback you've been getting from Diseased Intention so far. How's your audience reacting?
It's been a lot more positive than I could have imagined. Because I felt with the first book, some people that left me reviews because they knew me, like personally, I thought they were just being nice, like not to hurt my feelings, kind of thing. But when it comes to Diseased Intentions, it was no longer about knowing me. It was about they knew my characters, and they like what I've done with Ryan, his family, and the plans that they have, and how also just how fragile not life is, but everything that you try and plan for just will not work, because there in this world that I've created, there is something that is always out there to try and stop it. The feedback or the review that I got yesterday from Helen Aitchison, what she said was that it keeps the same sort of feel and tempo as The Taste Beneath, but I haven't sort of I've obeyed the law of I've obeyed the characters. I've not tried to do anything too different. It still feels like the same universe. It still feels like the same book, the same world.
Yeah.
And it's another ARC reader of mine has said that it's a good extension into the final 3 books, because they sort of know what's going to happen in the last 3 books of this series. So she said like it's the perfect bridge between The Taste Beneath and then opening up even more. So
yeah. Awesome, man. I love it. So final question. How do you feel now about this series and where it's headed compared to how you felt when you finished off The Taste Beneath? Do you have more confidence in the series now?
I do. I've had I think since we last spoke, every day or every review I get, it's just no. The dream is for the book to go international, for everyone to know it and to see, it advertised on posters, on billboards, maybe even a TV adaptation. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that's in the back of my head all the time. I hope that does happen. But with how everyone who's connected with The Taste Beneath so far, whether it's a success that I can make a living out of, or even if it's just an expensive hobby that I have now, it's something positive in my life, and I know a lot of people are liking it as well. So.
Awesome, man. I love it. Thanks so much for catching up with me again.
Cheers.
We have to do an interview that's not 2 years away.
I'll say thank you so much for being patient with me. It's been very on and off with me for the past 2 months, but it's been amazing to catch up with you again, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man. And everything about Daniel, all his socials, I'll attach in the description, and the links to his new book. It's on pre-sale at the moment. And yeah, he's getting in reviews from ARCs and stuff. And yeah, a lot of us are excited for his second book coming out. What's the date? March
28th, so a month after yours.
March 28th, his second novel, Diseased Intentions, is coming out. So make sure to check it out. Make sure to have a look at what it's all about and what people are saying. But yeah, if you want to hear more stories like Daniel's about indie authors succeeding, growing, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, any indie authors out there who are listening to this, I'd love to chat to you as well. I'm all for authors and spreading the word and letting people know about what's happening in the life of writers. But thank you very much again, Daniel. And we'll catch up again soon.
Will do, buddy.